lot of brands don't do a really good job of, like, the only thing I've realized is people love their pets more than their kids and their spouses. It's crazy. I think the first one is, are you using upsells? Are you using incentive progress bars? Are you using mega menus? Are you using cart drawers? Are you using checkout extension?
Well, guys, Alex Fedotoff here. Welcome to E-commerce Scaling Secrets podcast. And today I have an amazing guest, Ben from Platter.co. These guys offer team and app bundle to help Shopify stores optimize their profitability. Ben, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So if you can break down in few words like what Platter does for Shopify stores.
Yeah, so Platter is a theme and app bundle to help improve profitability on Shopify storefronts. The business was built around two core theses. The first one is that a lot of apps in the Shopify ecosystem are features, not products. And so what happens when brands scale is they get stuck with too many apps, too many support teams, bloated tech stacks, slower website, worse conversion. And the second piece of it is the misalignment between development agencies and brands, because development agencies get paid for their time. So they're incentivized to make things complicated and expensive. And so what we've done over the last 2 years is natively build a lot of the most popular functionality around marketing and conversion into one solution, which is a theme and app bundle. So we can unify your app stack and then layer in best practices around how to increase your average order value and your conversion rate, so we can quantify making you money and saving you money at the same time.
Awesome. And so you mentioned the like most businesses, let's say, like business wants to build like a new website. They find a development agency, and the incentives, as you mentioned, are not necessarily aligned when they're trying to build a website. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, because if an agency is getting paid for their time, they're incentivized to make the scope bigger than maybe it needs to be. They might give you a custom store where you're required to have to go back to them every single time you want to change something. And you're essentially beholden to the agency if you're not technical yourself. Whereas the way that we think about this is we want to optimize for cost effective and efficiency, because we want to build a big product that has the economies of scale to allow many brands to use it without having to pay the same amount of money it would require to build it from scratch on your own. So in a way, like, we want to empower brands to not have to get stuck using development agencies that are charging them, well into the six figures to build a site over the course of 9 months, if we can give you something that we can do in less than 60 days without compromising quality.
Oh, wow. It can cost like 100 G's to build a website?
We've had some brands come to us with competing quotes that were like into the six figures. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't think any website should cost this much money. And we'll do it for them in, a fifth of the cost or less. And they're like, wait, really? And I was like, yeah, don't listen to everything you hear.
Oh, wow. How this idea came to mind?
So I spent a year before starting this company at a company called GoPuff, and I was working on a business unit with e-commerce brands. And when I talked to so many brands, I realized that there was no consistency in terms of how they were building and managing their storefronts. It was essentially just one brand owner going to the guy next to him being like, hey, how'd you build your site? Like, can you introduce me to that guy? And it wasn't like, there wasn't a gold standard for how it was done, which is why we found so much inconsistency in terms of what brands were doing. It was like, I found a freelancer who I paid $20 an hour who built me an amazing website, but then I have someone who paid $100,000 to an agency that built them a horrible website. So there was just no consistency. So we're like, can we build the gold standard in terms of what you should do to build a high converting e-commerce website?
Wow. And so let's say, obviously, like, you have a solution. Is it customizable for, let's say, if brand has their own like colors, kind of design, fonts and stuff like that?
It's fully customizable. So the idea is that we want to just give you the guardrails and the framework in terms of like the features that you have access to build your store. But I can show you 5 different stores on Platter and you would never know that they're all built on our product because it's bespoke and unique to your brand.
Oh, wow. Does Shopify offer what does Shopify, like, where does it break in terms of kind of like what they offer versus, because there's obviously some standard teams, like you can go and find debut team, like there's free teams. There's also some paid teams that you can get, right? So where do you think it could be, like, from Shopify perspective, could be offered as additional product or as additional kind of service?
Yeah, so the way that Shopify is set up is they have their theme marketplace and their app marketplace. And what happens is you'll buy a theme, you'll add a bunch of customization or build it as far as you can, and then you'll go to the App Store and you'll download all the apps to supplement the functionality that you couldn't accomplish on the theme. So you either go get a bunch of apps or you go to a developer to custom build all the things that it doesn't have. What we were saying is, can we build as much functionality as possible into one theme and one app and get you 80% of the way there without having to do any of the customization work or without having to add other apps, so that we can get you further cheaper and faster, right? So there's nothing wrong with the way that Shopify is operating. We're like, all the brands we work with, they still use other apps. But if we can give you a storefront with a couple less apps, we can save you a couple dollars and give you a few recommendations on new features to be using to make you a couple dollars and thus make you more profitable, you're probably happy with us.
So after like seeing, you've probably seen like hundreds of different websites, clients come to you. What are the biggest mistakes you see people are making when it comes to their conversion rate optimization?
It's a great question. It's a loaded question. I think it's oftentimes it's contextual to the type of brand that you have. But I think ultimately, like, the first and foremost, is don't make it harder than it needs to be for someone to buy a product. Right? Like, adding friction to the conversion funnel, if people struggle or don't understand how to get through the website or how to purchase something, they're just not going to. If you make it harder than it needs to be to make a purchase, then people just aren't going to purchase. So the first thing that we always talk about is optimizing your conversion funnel. That starts with everything from the menu. So we always recommend using a mega menu where you can use visual assets to illustrate to people like the different categories or SKUs you have. Humans are lazy. They don't like to read a lot of words. So we always say, if you can make it very visually easy for them to follow through the page from the menu to the product page to the cart and reduce the number of clicks required to make a purchase, then you're going to be happy with your conversion rate.
Interesting. And so, and in terms of the like loading time, you mentioned like the amount of apps. Like, how does it, let's say, you know, you have an app, right? One thing that I've heard is that if you have an app and then you remove it, there's still parts of the code and stuff that's remaining on the website that will still slow your website down even after you remove the app. Is that accurate?
That is 100% accurate.
Oh, wow. So what do you have to do?
So there's essentially what happens when you do that is you have a lot of unused JavaScript where like you add an app, all the code is there, you remove the app, but all the code stays there. And so what's really important from an architectural perspective is, number one, you're either scrubbing your code to get rid of unused JavaScript, in that case, removing an app, or what really happens is you'll work with too many freelancers or developers in the same code base. You'll download and delete too many apps, and then it gets to a point where it's so hard to manage. And that's when it makes sense to like port over to a clean infrastructure like Platter to get rid of all of that unused code.
So you'd have to like rebuild your website from scratch pretty much?
Yeah, it's either you have a couple options. You can either pay someone to go in there and like remove the code, but again, you're going down that rabbit hole of paying agencies, paying freelancers, or you build a new storefront to eliminate all that unused code. But like when people are obsessing over page speed, for example, the easiest way to slow down your website is to have a bunch of apps downloaded and a bunch of scripts loading in the background that aren't actually doing anything because it's maybe from an app that you deleted 2 months ago. But a lot of store owners don't even realize that the app code stays.
I know there are certain apps right now where you have like even like video kind of like embedded on the page, like, or TikToks kind of like dynamically moving. And it looks cool, right? Like, have you seen that like slowing down the website as well?
It's actually all about the loads. So we have a video feature in our product, a shoppable video feature, and a lot of it has to do with how you're loading information on the page. So it's not only what features or what apps you're using, but it's also like what is the sequence of events in terms of how those are actually loading. Because, for example, if you have a new page where there's a bunch of videos or images and they're reloading every time you click, versus like lazy loading as an example where like they load in the background before the page, it will drastically affect how slow the page is or how slow the website is. So one of the other challenges is when you're using a lot of point solutions on a website versus one cohesive solution, every vendor thinks things should be done differently. And so if you're just piecemealing together a bunch of different apps, it usually leads to a very troublesome website.
What are the benchmarks, would you say, like in terms of the loading speed? Like, what are the kind of, if you look at the website, you evaluate it, how do you know if it's like slow, like fast enough? Like, what are the...
To be honest with you, I actually personally believe that most of the people who are spending their time obsessing over page speed are spending their time on the wrong things. I see a lot of people who will come to us and be like, hey, can you help us fix your page speed? And I'll look at their website and I'll be like, the page speed is not the issue. Like, you have a lot of mishaps in your conversion funnel in terms of how you're guiding customers through the website. I think that way too many people obsess over page speed that should be focused more on like the fundamentals of the website. So
Interesting.
like a great example for you is if a brand is using a new page load for the checkout instead of a cart drawer. So one of the things we tell all of our brands is if you can reduce every click that you can reduce from the conversion funnel, so reducing the amount of clicks it takes from landing on the website to buying a product, with a large enough data set, you're going to see an increase in conversion rate. But it's like I have a brand who's like, my website's slow, what do I do? And I look at them and I say, you require a customer to go through 8 clicks to make a purchase. Like, it doesn't matter how fast your website is. You need to fix the fundamentals of the website. I think page speed is very nuanced. Like, it's a very, very niche thing that not as many brands should be focused on, but for whatever reason it became this like big buzzword term in e-commerce where like if your page isn't fast enough, it's not going to convert well. And I think it's over talked about relative to who should be spending time on that.
So you would recommend for business owners, Shopify entrepreneurs to focus on like usability, how easy it is to use the website, how easy it is to find the product that they're looking for, how easy it is to complete the purchase more than anything else.
Yeah, give your website to a 6-year-old and a 90-year-old and see if they can figure out how to navigate through the website. And if not, it probably gives you some information about what to change.
And in terms of the conversion rate, I know it also kind of could be like very different for different kind of products. Are there any specific like benchmarks that, let's say, if the product costs like under $50, right, the main product or main SKU, what are the conversion rates you would expect, let's say, or compare that to $100, kind of product or AOV?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a couple components to it. The first one is understanding the category. The second one is understanding the SKU count. And then, as you mentioned, the third one is price point. One of the other things to note is a lot of brands don't realize how many factors affect their conversion rate outside of just the SKUs. So, like, is your product seasonal? Well, how big is your ad spend? How good is the quality of the content on your website? So, like, I can give you benchmark numbers that we're looking at, but I actually think the real challenge is when brands don't realize all the factors that directly affect their conversion rate. It's not just page speed, right? So like we have brands doing anywhere from like 2 to 8% in their conversion rate that are in the same categories. But like if I show you their website and I sit down with you, you'd be like, oh, like the assets are way better here. This website has way more social proof. This website is not as seasonal. It's all year round. Like they don't have a crazy discount strategy that is like affecting consumer behavior. Like there's just so many different things to think about for conversion. So my advice would be to any brand owner listening, like don't think if you don't have a certain number that you're failing. It's like actually try to dissect all the elements of your store that can be affected or that can affect conversion rate and figure out where to improve.
So when you're looking at, because I've got that, in my own experience, after seeing like many different businesses, like you can look into the business and like within, I don't know, 15, 30 minutes, you can pretty much kind of like identify the main gaps in the business. Like they have the same with, kind of like with your expertise, like you look at the website and you can quickly identify the gaps that they have and how they can improve?
I would say now it's a matter of minutes. Like I also can't look at a website anymore without like putting on my brain of like what could be better. It's like the only way that I can think about it now when I look at websites. But I've looked at thousands at this point. So yeah, I would say it's very easy now to look at a website and like understand where they're potentially having pitfalls. Some are way more glaring than others. Some, a little bit more nuanced. But I would say like largely there's a lot of like very common mistakes that stick out to me on a lot of websites.
And you mentioned the friction and kind of like adding that unnecessary friction that some websites have. What are the kind of obviously the best practices for like eliminating friction?
Yeah, I would say one really big one is in a lot of ways it's important to cater to your high intent shoppers. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of brands where if you have a couple of your hero products that are like your best sellers, make those purchasable from the homepage.
Oh, interesting.
Like don't force a customer to land on the homepage, see a collection, click into the collection, see the product, click to the product page just to purchase. It's like if you have a couple SKUs that everyone buys, like let them purchase those faster. So that's one low-hanging fruit example. Another one is social proof, right? Like if a customer lands on a page about a product and they're not sure if they want to buy it, like why? Does it not have reviews? Do you not have answers to the commonly asked questions? Are there not video assets proving that like other people actually use the product? I think that social proof is one of the most underrated levers for conversion rate that not enough brands are leaning into, because you have to put yourself in the shoes of the buyer. If I'm interested in a product and I land on that product page, I probably have a few questions I want to answer. I probably want to see if other people use this. Very few people want to be that guinea pig that like lands on a page and there's nothing about a product and you're like, I don't really know if this is safe or not. So you click away because you want to have that reassurance that other people are using it also.
Yeah. And like, do you integrate like social proof even like on the homepage? Like, do you integrate it everywhere?
Everywhere.
Wow.
We have, the shoppable video functionality that can be on every page, the reasons to love section, reviews. Social proof is like one of the biggest tenets of our product. I would say it's a couple things. One is social proof, and then the other one is gamification and consumer behavior. So a lot of the functionality and recommendations we make are around like how do you psychologically make someone feel like they're accomplishing something or like earning something, right? So for example, using an incentive progress bar. It's like buy 3, get 10% off. You can put progress bars on the homepage, on the product page, in the cart. So at every step in the journey, they always feel like, well, if I just buy one more product, then I unlock something, and all that does is increase your average order value as a brand.
Oh wow, that's a great tactic, and so that's possible to implement using your platform.
Yeah, we have like over 40 categories of functionality. A lot of it is around upsells, cross sells, gamification, social proof. So like bundle builders, upsells in the cart, incentive bars in the cart, checkout extensions, shoppable videos, sticky CTAs, mega menus. I mean, the list is pretty extensive at this point.
Checkout extension. So is that only for Shopify Plus?
Yeah, checkout extensions is only for Shopify Plus right now. That might change in the future depending on what Shopify decides to do, but for right now, it is just for Plus brands.
And what are the things that are possible to do with those checkout extensions?
I mean, you have so much freedom now. You can add upsells, you can add incentive bars, testimonials, alert banners.
On the checkout page?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Route protection. We have 11 extensions right now, and that number will continue to grow. But they've basically made it now where the checkout page is like its own shopping experience. So it's like, wait, before you leave, like, let's take you through one more experience. But I mean, some of the numbers we've seen in terms of AOV impact on putting upsells at checkout, and then conversion as well because of social proof. Because you can put testimonials, you can put alert banners. Like I think another fun example one of our brands uses is an alert banner that basically says like, this order, you only have like 15 minutes to make this purchase, or like we might run out of stock. That's another like psychological consumer behavior thing where you create a level of urgency to drive purchase.
Interesting. And so what are some of the things that can increase someone's like AOV like tomorrow, like someone watching this?
So I would say that I'll speak specifically to brands that have medium-sized SKU counts and medium-sized price points. So brands that have anywhere from like 10 to 100 SKUs and price points anywhere from like $20 to $100. Because very high-ticket items are a lot harder to increase AOV because you can't get someone to like impulsively purchase $1,000 item in the cart. Mm-hmm. But in terms of something you can do tomorrow, putting upsells on the main frame of the product page. So like right below the add to cart or buy now button on a product page, putting like complimentary upsell products, not as a separate section on the product page, like right in the main frame. Another thing you can do is a bundle builder. Mm-hmm. So a tiered incentive gamified bundle builder where you basically explain to the consumer that if you add a certain number of products to the cart, you'll unlock new thresholds. So it's like buy 3, get 10% off, buy 4, get a free item, whatever it might be. Another one is in the cart drawer, adding upsells in the cart and an incentive bar. So same thing, trying to incentivize people to buy more. A really important note there, though, is make sure if you're adding upsells in the cart that you don't send the consumer backwards in the conversion funnel. So it needs to be like an add now button that will have like a pop-up modal instead of clicking an add to cart. So if you have an upsell in the cart and you click add to cart, or click on that product, a lot of brands will send you back to that product page to add it to your cart instead of letting you do it directly in the cart. That's a conversion tactic, but it's an important one to call out. And then the last thing for AOV is checkout extensions. So you can put more upsells on the checkout page. So now it's like you have upsells on the product page, you have upsells in the cart drawer, and you have upsells in the checkout page. Like the odds of you being able to increase your AOV are pretty high.
Interesting. We also touched, before we started recording, like on some of the like categories of products and some of the niches that you see kind of look like growing. And like, what are the biggest like opportunities you see like in e-commerce right now in terms of the like new niches or new markets?
I think supplements, and more specifically the pet health and pet supplement space, is crazy. Like looking at the data of some of the brands that we work with, like the only thing I've realized is people love their pets more than their kids and their spouses. It's crazy. The subscription retention revenue numbers on pet health and supplements brands are absolutely mind blowing. And I was thinking about it, and I realized that if you can get a consumer to buy a product for their pet and they give it to the pet the first time and the pet likes it, what is the scenario where you stop giving that pet the product? Like, your dog isn't coming to you and saying, hey, I don't like this anymore. Please stop feeding me this multivitamin. It's like the pet either dies or maybe you financially like can't afford it anymore. But those are like two very outlier situations. And so for that reason, the retention numbers that I've seen in pet supplements are crazy.
Interesting. And so one of the things you mentioned is, let's say if you have like main SKUs that people are buying, like most of all, like on the website, that putting those SKUs right on the homepage. Have you seen that like working for brands, like where people can just actually shop from the homepage?
Yeah, I would say it's very popular. It's very popular for brands that have like very clear hero products. So if you're a brand that has, call it 50 SKUs, but like your 3 to 5 best-selling SKUs, making those shoppable on the homepage, we see very strong metrics from that behavior, because odds are if you're running a lot of paid traffic and have organic content and you have very clear best-selling products, a lot of people are visiting your site for those.
And they're already pre-sold on that product.
Exactly. Like, that's probably the thing that brought them to the website. So it goes back to what I said before, which is like, make it as easy as possible for them to purchase.
Wow.
Which is why making it transactable from the homepage is a very good way to do so.
Wow, interesting. What are the major things like on the category page, kind of in terms of the improvements that people can implement if they have, let's say, hundreds of SKUs?
So the first one is filtering functionality. A lot of brands don't do a really good job of having filter functionality. I think that is the first one. It's like, let someone figure out where they want to go and let them get there as fast as they can. And then I think another thing as well is thinking about how to maximize the white space on the page. So I'm not a huge proponent of just like an endless scroll, because when you think about it, it takes someone a really long time to get to the bottom of the page. So something we'll actually have in certain instances is a horizontal scroll. So for accessibility reasons, a horizontal scroll, you don't have to keep scrolling down the page. So it's all in one spot. Like, by being able to consolidate and condense information horizontally instead of vertically requires less time to get to where you want to go.
So how would that look like? Like, you just click this side?
You ever see like the scroll bars where you can have like an arrow there, or it can have like a brag bar under it?
Yeah.
And then the other thing as well is having a second image on hover. So like when you have like a collection page with a product, then you hover over the image and it will change. So you have an opportunity to put 2 images on one product instead of one, right? So it's unused real estate that a lot of brands aren't using. It can be additional social proof. So if you're in beauty or supplements, you can have a picture of like a creator using the product, and then if you hover over it, maybe you show like the nutrition label, so people can like see what's actually in the product.
Oh, wow.
So it's like allowing you to gain more information before you have to click to the page.
What are the websites that, like, when you're looking at those, you're like, wow, this is kind of, very well done from the conversion optimization standpoint, that you would like look as a inspiration or as a model?
I mean, right now, I selfishly feel like I spend most time looking at the brands we're working with. But a couple of the ones that we just released that I love, one that I really like is Neurogum. Have you heard of Neurogum?
Oh, you had one.
Yeah, there's a pack right there.
I tried it yesterday. I love it.
Their website is one of my favorites.
That's your work.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm biased, but I love that website. And one of the things about
convert?
Yeah, it converts wonderfully. And then another one is Caged, which is a supplements brand. They almost hit double-digit conversion when they moved to Platter, which is like unheard of.
Wow. There's many things that we covered, right? And let's say if someone starts like reviewing their website, there could be like, I don't know, 50 different things that they could do. So what would be the order of priority that you would use in order to kind of like start optimizing your conversion rate?
I think the first one is look at your assets and your social proof. So like the quality of the content. The architecture of the website only goes so far. If your assets aren't good, it doesn't matter how well your conversion funnel is set up. So like social proof and assets are number one. The second one is get a really good understanding of how easy is it to navigate your website. If I'm someone who's landing on your website for the first time, can I get to where I want to go and make a purchase as fast as possible? So the easiest way to do that is figure out if there are ways to reduce the number of clicks required to make a purchase. Best way to do that is putting buy now buttons, allowing you to get to the cart a lot faster. And then I would say the third piece of it is just analyzing the functionality you're using to increase your average order value and your conversion rate. Like, are you using upsells? Are you using incentive progress bars? Are you using mega menus? Are you using cart drawers? Are you using checkout extensions? There's a lot of features that you can be using to improve those things. So I think, like, to bring that back to the original question, it's quality of your assets and social proof. It's understanding where you can reduce friction in the conversion funnel. And it's making sure that you're utilizing all the functionality available to you to increase your AOV and your conversion rate.
And if people wanted to improve their, like, I don't know, conversion rate optimization skills or understanding, like, where would you go? Like, where would you search for these resources? Because I mean, you have a lot of experience and it's kind of like accumulated, and it's like, you know, but it's hard to kind of replicate this for people.
It's a really good question. I actually find that a lot of my information has come from Twitter. So I think there's a handful of different people that I follow on Twitter, and it's where I post a lot of information. And I think from there, I've been able to like meet people who kind of send you to different resources. But for me, it's really about talking to a lot of people in the space and utilizing different social platforms. I would say Twitter is probably the biggest one where I get my information from. And then from there, I kind of see what other things people are reading.
Awesome, Ben. It's been, I mean, I've learned, like, personally, like, I don't know, like 3 action points personally, you know, for our brands, like that I'm going to implement from this conversation. So thank you so much for sharing. How do people, like, if people want to try Platter, like, what do they do?
Yeah, so you can find me on all socials at Ben Sharf, BenSharf. My email is ben@platter.co. If you're interested in learning more, happy to give you a free audit of your website if you want to just send me an email or book on the website link.
Awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Ben, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.